If you're anything like me, when you hear the word obedience, there's something inside of you that gets uncomfortable. Obedience is the main reason I couldn't wait to grow up, so no one could tell me what to do. After all, what's really wrong with eating chocolate cake for breakfast or, forgetting to make your bed every once in a while? Or a week, right? But you know what the surprising thing about being an adult is? I still follow some rules. There are some rules that I follow without even thinking about it. Like, I would never put foil in the microwave. I don't spray Windex in my eyes, and I always drive hands-free. So why do I follow these rules? Well, they're just pretty smart, aren't they? The people who made this Windex know something about chemical properties that I may not fully understand. And because they are selling me this product, they feel responsible for my safety and welfare, and they don't want me to put it in my eyes. Okay, they also may not want me to sue them, but you know how it goes. But there are some other people in my life who also have authority over me. I have a boss at work, and I abide by the laws that exist in the state where I live. I wear a seatbelt when I drive, and I do these things because I trust the people who have authority have created these rules and guidelines for my protection. This month is all about the importance of obedience. It's not that we want children to simply comply with all the rules, but we want children to understand the value of trusting those who have authority. That's why we define obedience like this: trusting who's in charge by doing what you're asked to do. Somewhere along the way, we have to make sure that children who grow up in our churches and families understand why it's important to obey. After all, how they obey their leaders reflects what they think about God. Let's talk about what the writers of the Bible have to say about obedience, starting with our memory verse for the month, 2 John 6. John writes, "The way we show our love is to obey God's commands. He commands you to lead a life of love. That's what you have heard from the beginning." See, ultimately, how we love our kids and how our kids respond in obedience should reflect how God loves us and wants us to make our love for Him and each other our number one priority. This is how it's been since the beginning, which is where we're going to start. See, if you want to learn about God and the plan He has for you, the best place to start is the Bible. We might know that after years of experience, but kids are just discovering why the Bible is so important. And that's why we're taking the first week of the month to explain how the Bible works. In Psalm 119:105, we read, "Your word is like a lamp that shows me the way. It's a light that guides me." In the Bible, we find 66 different books written and compiled by people who had a close relationship with God and wrote down what God wanted everyone to know about Him. It's filled with letters and histories, poems and parables, sermons and conversations that all add up to God's one big story and point to Jesus. Because when you learn about God, it's easier to follow Him. In fact, if you've ever picked up a Bible and started reading from the beginning, you know that it doesn't take long to discover the value of obedience. In the beginning, God created a magnificent paradise for Adam and Eve to live in and enjoy. They had an unbroken relationship with God who gave them one simple rule: don't eat from that tree. But ultimately, they didn't trust God. They decided to break the one rule, and when they did, it changed the course of history. They learned that obedience matters, even when you think you know better than the one who made the rule. As you keep reading in Genesis, you see how life kept spiraling farther away from God. Soon, everyone seemed to be focused on anything but God, except for one man, Noah. Now, you're probably familiar with this story, how God sent a flood and instructed Noah to build a giant boat. People must have thought he was crazy. But God honored Noah's obedience and saved him, his family, and lots of animals. In this story, we see how it's definitely worth trusting God and obeying, even if you're the only one. We wrap up our month with another significant moment in God's one big story. God asked someone to make a giant leap of faith and to be obedient. God promised Abraham that his descendants would become a great nation. He tells Abraham to pack up his family and move. He wasn't exactly sure how things would all play out, but he obeyed. trusting that God would keep his promise. When you look at Abraham's obedience, it's easy to see the value of obeying even when you don't know how it will all work out. So, why is it important for you as a leader to teach children obedience? To teach children to trust those who lead them by doing what they're asked to do? Well, for at least two reasons. First, we want every child to understand what it means to live under the umbrella of authority and protection when it comes to their safety and their future. Second, most of these children are going to grow up and have their own families, become leaders in their own organizations, and their ability to learn how to follow will determine how well they lead. So remember, this month, you're simply doing one thing. You're teaching children to obey by trusting those who lead them, by doing what they're asked to do.